All right, 1 second here. All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone at this Q&A. We're right on the verge of Passover. Everybody, a little bit crazy mode over here, or wherever they may be. House upside down, apartment upside down. Getting rid of all your chametz, cleaning, whatever's left, turning over, moving things, cooking. There's a lot to do. A lot to do for the holiday. One thing, I just want to mention, about that. I think it's the greatest proof of the fact that A, there's a God in the world, and that God exists, and B, that the Jewish people are eternal. What do I mean? Or the greatest proof that the Torah must be true, right? We don't necessarily, need proof. That's not really the point of what we do. But to the outside world, what do we see? What do we see over here? We have one event that happened more than 3,000 years ago, right? Really more than 3,500 years ago, right? You got one event in history that happened. Jews came out of Egypt. Now the Muslim, and then what happened? Jews came out of Egypt. God gave the Jewish people the Torah, right? They went in the desert. Moses went to the mountain. God spoke to the Jewish people, right? Everyone agrees. Muslims, Christians, whether they think we're chosen anymore, we're not chosen anymore, right? Irrelevant. 100% irrelevant. Because they agree God spoke to the nation. How many people did God speak to? So it says 600,000 men between the ages 20 and 16, not including women and children, right? So you're talking about 2 to 3 million people. Right, give or take. So now, come the 15th of Nisan, right? It's going to be tomorrow night for everyone. What are we going to do? We're going to sit down. It's not going to be so early, but whatever it is, we're going to sit down. We're going to start the Seder. You're going to have matzahs. First, we'll have maror, bitter herbs, charoset, cup of Elijah, 4 cups of wine. One event in history, so many different offshoots of what we do. The evening service all about coming out of Egypt. Yeah, mezuzah on the door. What some of the verses there, all about coming out of Egypt. Tefillin, phylacteries, whatever you want to call them. Parchment in there speaks about coming out of Egypt. We have Kiddush Friday night. Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim, coming out of Egypt. So interesting enough, why do I say it's it's the greatest event to prove God exists in the world? First of all, you're going to say, well, it happened 3,500 years ago. Or more. People say it happened, it didn't happen. This is what we do. We tell the story. Tell the story of the Exodus. But we always say 4 generations. We're at the Seder. And a great-grandfather, grandfather, father, and a child. Right? You can have a great-grandfather, 90 years old, 95 years old. Right? So they have let's say he's got a son, right? He's got a son in the 60s, 70s, whatever it is. He's got a son in their 40s, and they have a son. 4 generations, right? So you go back 90 years, 95 years, right? So, you're in the middle of the 1900s, right? In the early 1900s. Then that 95-year-old person was also a child. So that child also, let's say they saw the great-grandfather. So go back another 90 years. All right, so go another 90 years, you're in the 1800s. How many of those generations you need to give the Torah Mount Sinai? 80. Give or take. 80 generations. Right? The person says 3,500 years, you're going to say, wow, 3,500 years. Come on, that sounds like, it's so ancient. Who's got a connection to it? This, that. 80 generations. Right? You go back to your great-great-grandparents, you're already in the 1700s. Right? You're not going that far. That's not a leap of faith. Totally not a leap of faith. Right? And again, most of the modern world today agrees that's what happened. God came to the Jewish people. God spoke in front of the Jewish people, 3 million people, give or take. No other so-called religion makes such a claim. Nobody. They may try and steal some of our things, butcher it to death, for sure. But to make such a claim, no one's ever done. Any other so-called religion, their savior comes in front of who? Bunch of drunks, few people. JC did all his miracles, let's say. Let's say he did all these miracles in front of who? Few people. Doesn't give so much credibility, right? Muhammad flies from Mecca to Medina. Who's there? How many people there see it? Not too many. Yeah. So then the question is, okay, Jewish people come to Mount Sinai. Now, what's the purpose of the Jews coming to Mount Sinai? Purpose of the Jews coming to Mount Sinai except the Torah. Because all the other nations didn't want it. God comes to Jewish people, we mentioned this last week. God comes to Jewish people and says, or we mentioned actually yesterday, right, or Sunday. What did God say? Or what did the Jewish people say? Now Seven Ishmael. We're going to do, and then we're going to hear. Whatever you tell us, we'll do. No questions asked. Whatever it is. Right, so we mentioned sometimes people coming into the process, whether it's a JIT, a Jew in training, or as an Noahite, right, or as Baal Tshuva, as a Jew returning to Judaism, then questions. Questions are good. Everyone should ask questions. A lot of questions to be asked. We go through the Haggadah, we don't even know who wrote it. We're not even sure who wrote it. Who wrote the Haggadah, right? So, questions are valid. Many, many valid questions. Yeah, but what's the bottom line? What's the bottom line? Bottom line is we do what God says because he said it. Doesn't mean we don't have to understand it, but God said it. We keep it where, we're running ourselves ragged, so to speak, doing all this. And what do we do? So there's two things going on. All right, two things we got to remember. One is we got the 4 cups of wine, right? One explanation is 4 different usages of the word for redemption, right? In the book of Exodus, right? That the rabbis learn out. That's why I have 4 cups of wine. So the first cup, you sanctify the day like you would do it on a festival, like you do it on Shabbos. You sanctify it with wine and grape juice. Very good. Second cup of wine. What's the second cup of wine for? You're going to say at the end of Magid. Magid means you're telling over the story, right? You're telling over the story of the Exodus from Egypt, right? So that cup of wine is all about it's going on all about the miracle, all about the plagues, all about the fact that if God had not taken us out, we'd never come out, right? It's also a little bit hard to understand because every nation has their day. Who says the Egyptians wouldn't have let the Jews go? Who says the Jews couldn't have escaped? Right? Even though no one ever escaped from Egypt, the world power at that time, no one ever escaped, whoever they enslaved. Right? This is above nature. The whole thing's above nature. Jewish people exist, above nature. The reality is people ask, so what is that relevance today? What's the relevance today? You're gonna say, maybe it's like the underdog. And the underdog wins, so to speak, every so often. It's a game, it's a final game, and the team that's favored doesn't always win. They say maybe the majority of the time it does, whatever, right? There are times it can be upsets. It can be tremendous upsets, certainly in sports, no question. Okay, in this case, for the Jewish people, is there any possibility whatsoever, we would say in Basque, is there any possible way the Jews get out according to nature? No. Put it in a supercomputer, 10 times out of 10, they stay. They don't get out. They don't get out. So Moses, you see, the beginning of the book of Exodus doesn't want to go. Right? You can tell me it's because of humility. You can't speak well. Other things. But God tells them, I want you to go take out the Jewish people. I want you to go speak in front of Pharaoh. He's like, who am I? I can't really speak so well. So God says, fine. I'll talk to you. You'll tell Aaron. Aaron will tell Pharaoh. You don't have to be embarrassed. Okay. But there's a back and forth. There's a back and forth going on. So, Moshe Rabbeinu reached the 48th level of understanding. Right? 49th level is like the greatest level ever. But, no human got there to reach that level. So Moshe Rabbeinu seemingly is complaining. Well, it sounds like, right? The other one do. God's bidding. Why not? God said, go to Egypt, let my people go. Go tell Pharaoh, let him go. Right? It's heaven and hine, and God does a stick trick and other things. Don't worry, they'll listen to you, blah, blah, blah. What's he complaining about? Very hard to understand. And all the Torah are very hard to understand. It's simple. What's going on? So Moshe Rabbeinu tells God, listen. He says, I looked up to heaven, and he was able to read the stars, not like these fake horoscope people, whatever. He's able to actually read the stars, see what's going on. And he says, Jewish people never getting out. Impossibility. Because he saw every nation has a guardian angel, and that angel pleads its cause in front of God for whatever their needs of that nation. And he saw the angel of the Egyptians intertwined with an angel of the Jewish people, right? With an angel of God, so to speak, intertwined like a double helix, right? Or let's say better, like a double helix. However you make a double helix, like a DNA molecule, yeah? Like two ladders intertwined. Very good. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to God and says, you want me to take out the Jewish people? Jewish people, according to nature, never get out. They can't get out. According to nature. Impossible. They'll never get out. Yeah. So God says, Mo. I don't know if he called him Mo or not. God says, Mo, what are you talking about? What's the problem? I can do anything. Right? I'm above nature. I can circumvent nature. I can do all these things. You don't think I can take the Jewish people out according, above nature? So God says, don't worry about it. You're right, according to nature. And we've seen this time and time again. We see with Abraham. Abraham looks at the stars. God says, look at the stars. You won't be able to count your offspring. Like, very funny. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't have any kids. Right? I don't have biological kids with Sarah. It's impossible. Right? She couldn't bear a child. According to nature. So what does God say? You're above the stars. Don't worry. He changes his name. God changes his name from Avram to Avraham. God changes Sarah's name from Sarai to Sarah. Right? So there's a yud and a hey that are added over here. Half of God's name. Can God do anything? Of course God can do anything. Right? But God says you're above nature. Sorry, you're above the stars. Don't worry about what the stars say. Because we're going to change that. Comes along God and tells Moshe Rabbeinu the same thing. You're right. According to nature, you put in 10,000, however many supercomputers, Jews never get out. They never get out. No underdog, during this time here about, other nations or, people that have been subjugated, and the underdog will come out and we have to support them with this and that, right? See what's going on in Ukraine. We'll have to make a big distinction here. Say, now I got to support them, fight against this, big overbearing giant, the Russians, you got to fight against them, got to help them, whatever. Not going to get into politics, as I never normally do. Yeah, so there's the underdog. There's the big underdog over here. Yeah, it's taking a toll, both sides. True. Very true. But if, according to heaven, Ukraine is going to get blasted and they're finished, let's say, and Russia's going to overtake them, there's nothing to do. There's no rooting for the underdog. There is no underdog over here. They're going to lose. 10 times out of 10, okay. Didn't exactly happen the way Russia thought, Very good. Yeah. But let's say they took them over, let's say 6 months or a year. They took them over, they overpowered them. They're never escaping. Never going to happen. Oh, the underdogs, though. No underdog. For the Jewish people, it's not about being an underdog. They're never going to win. Comes along God, the Moshe Rabbeinu, and says, you're right. According to nature, Jews never get out. Impossible. Right? That's why the Haggadah says, had not God taken them out, they never would have gotten out. So there's an obvious question. What do you mean? What do you mean? Russia, how many years were they in power? 70 years for the breakup of the former Soviet Union. Right? The Greeks, the Romans, how long were they in power for? 100 years, 200 years. Right? They got taken over eventually. So all these places, eventually, they die out. They don't stay. They don't stay in charge forever. Right? It doesn't work that way. They rise, they fall, they rise. That's what history is. And we see that see that many, many different nations. See that? Except in this case. In this case, as the world power, you tell me, no one ever got out from them. No one ever escaped. Okay. And according to nature, it should never happen. Why is Haggadah say? The Haggadah says, hey, the Jews are never getting out. God had to do it himself. God had to come down and take them out. And if God hadn't done that, never would have happened. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. The Haggadah tells me that if that wouldn't have been the case, they never leave. They never get out. They never accept the Torah. What's going on? They never get out. Yeah, they need God himself to take them out. So comes God and says to Moshe Rabbeinu, guess what? I don't need nature over here. You're right. According to nature, they never get out. According to nature, it's impossible. Right? Totally impossible. If that's true, then that would be the case. They never get out. Yeah, so God says they're going to come out a different way. I'm going to take them against nature. Totally against nature. I'm going to circumvent nature. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to circumvent nature. I'm going to overcome nature. I'm above nature. Otherwise, a lot of things over here don't make any sense. You're going to say Moshe Rabbeinu's bantering back to God. Now I can't do it. I don't speak so well. They're not going to listen to me. He's got a lot of reasons here not to want to take out the Jewish people. What's the problem? What's the problem? God says, what are you talking about? I told you to go and take them out. Like, what are you arguing about? You're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu here. What are you arguing about? What, you don't want to go? I just told you to go. I'll be with you. I'll speak to you. Aaron will speak for you. This, that. You do the stick trick, everything. Moses is like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Well, he's got a good claim. He's got a very good claim. And that is, according to nature, the king come out. But what do we see? We see the Jewish people are not the underdogs here. The Jewish people are governed by God's laws. And it's clear as day as we say in the Shema every day, twice a day. Even we say before we go to sleep. Yeah, if you say all 3 paragraphs before you go to sleep. Yeah, and that second paragraph is about reward and punishment. Clear about reward and punishment. You do the right thing, everything's good, you'll be on the top. You do the wrong thing, payback. There's going to be payback. So here they're enslaved. And God enslaves them according to some in order that what? That Moses himself grew up in the palace of the king. By growing up in the palace of the king, what does he see? He sees what kingship is. So God put him in there to understand what kingship is, to understand and tell over to the Jewish people, you're going to have to serve the King of Kings. Possibly one reason, right? That Moses, ends up growing up in the palace. And then they go out of Egypt. They go out miraculously. God takes them out miraculously in order to accept the Torah. Now, let's analyze one thing here. God takes them out to accept the Torah. Why did he want them to accept the Torah? You're going to say, what do you mean? Very simple. God wants everyone to accept the Torah, right? Meaning, he wanted them to accept the Torah. No one else wanted it. So Jewish people came and said, we'll see, we'll do, and then we'll hear. We'll do whatever the Torah says. It doesn't matter. What's the purpose of Torah? Purpose of Torah is to draw ourselves close to God. How are we supposed to do that? How is that possible? Oh, look, we got a book. God manufactured it itself. It's called the Torah. Right? God said exactly what he wants us to do. We understand it more. We understand it less. Doesn't matter. We have to keep it. That's our obligation. We have to keep it. Right? God will say, 15th of Nisan, shut up and eat the matzah. That's it. You eat a certain amount. Whatever it is, you drink the wine, grape juice, go through the whole thing, you tell the story, you learn about it. You got the entire week, to learn about it. But that's one event. This is one event. One event, the single greatest event in the history of man. Yeah, Jewish people get the Torah. That all of creation is dependent on the fact that the Jews are going to accept the Torah. Right? So I'll give you a hint. How do we know? Because the Torah says in Genesis, and it talks about creation of the world. It says, first day, second day, third day. Right? God created this, he created that, created the other thing. The third day, a fourth day, a fifth day. Then it says, God created man, everything on the sixth day. And he said, and the Torah says, the sixth day. What do you mean the? It says Yom HaShishi. Every other day is Yom Sheni. Right? The second day, Yom Shlishi. Third day, Yom Revi. The fourth day, Yom Chamishi. Fifth day, just make sure I can count here. And then it says Yom HaShishi. Literally the sixth day. What do you mean the sixth day? One explanation is everything was finished. God created everything. Everything is in suspended animation. Everything it hasn't been solidified. When does it get solidified? On the sixth day. Commentaries say why. Right? Rashi here points out why. Because the sixth day, what sixth day are we talking about? The 6th of Sivan. Or maybe the 7th of Sivan. Right? Depending. Right? What's the 6th of Sivan? Day the Jews got the Torah. Right? So what is Rashi saying? God looks at the creation, he creates everything. Everything's in suspended animation. Everything being in suspended animation, what happens? It gets solidified when God sees the Jewish people are going to accept the Torah. Everything then gets solidified. Yeah, but the Jewish people need to accept the Torah. Now, at the end of the book of Leviticus, it tells us, why did God take us out of Egypt? To sanctify us, to distinguish us from the non-Jews. Now, how are we supposed to distinguish ourselves? By keeping Torah mitzvahs, right? So the anti-Semites, Jewish anti-Semites, non-Jewish anti-Semites will say, oh, we're different. We don't keep their laws. We have different holidays. And if a non-Jew touches our wine, it's got spiritual cooties on, and say they can't touch it, can't drink it. All these things like, okay, going to distinguish us between the nations. What makes the Jewish people different? Right? Many people got the problem. They say, you're going to say you're better than us. You're all better than us because God says in the Torah, you're the chosen nation. What makes the Jewish people chosen? Why did God choose the Jewish nation in general? And why did we choose him? God wanted commitments. God wants us to keep what he says, whether it's a Jew or it's a non-Jew. Doesn't matter. Whatever a non-Jew has to keep. The purpose is to do what he says, to draw close. That's what he wants. He didn't take us out of Egypt. The Torah says to distinguish us between the nations. He didn't take us out of Egypt so we can eat shrimp. He didn't take us out of Egypt. Now you're going to think, all right, eating shrimp, eating things we're not allowed to eat, intermarrying, right, marrying non-Jews. He didn't take us out for that. You see, 70% of Jewish people today are intermarried. Some places it's even higher. The percentage of intermarriage is even higher. Totally destroying the Jewish people from within. Right? So God can look down and say, hey, I created the world for the sake of the Jewish nation. What would they do? What would they do? 75% of them totally intermarry and take them out for that. Don't worry, I took out the Jewish people. But guess what? There's a binding covenant. Regardless of what Christians say, what the Muslims say. Binding forever. Forever, it's binding. That being the case, no way out. Right? So, you'd ask any secular Jew, why God takes Jewish people out? For what? Why are you Jewish today? I don't know, my mother's Jewish. That's why I'm Jewish. Yeah, so what does that mean? What's my connection? This is everything. Coming out of Egypt is everything. It shows that God intervened in history. That's how we know. Right? Exodus chapter 20, verse 2, God took us out of Egypt. Sorry. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I'm the Lord your God. How do you know? It took me out of Egypt. The Muslims, Christians both agree. This happened. And then God gave us a Torah. So God intervenes in history. One of the major tenets of Judaism. Now, interesting, non-Jews, Noahites don't have to believe in divine providence per se. I think it's a good thing for them to believe in. They're not obligated. They have to believe in God, right? There's one God, and He's absolute, and He's unique. I don't know if they necessarily have to believe He's unique either, but they have to believe in one God, right? Bottom line. So what do we see from all this? An amazing thing. An amazing thing. What the obligation of the Jewish people is to the world. And when we circumvent that, or I shouldn't say circumvent, when we don't do what we're supposed to do, yeah, we're severely punished. And if you look at Tanakh, you look at the book of Joshua, you look at Judges, you look at Kings. When we do the right thing, we're all the way up here. When we do the wrong thing, all the way in the dirt. Nothing in between, right? We are a people of extreme, right? In a certain way. You want to go in the right path, God will help you. You don't want to go in the right path, God doesn't stop you. But you look at Jewish history, it doesn't make sense. Jews shouldn't have been here, right? They should have been destroyed. Certainly, after Babylonian destruction, it should have been it. Somehow the Jews came back, right? Then you got other times, other pogroms, the Holocaust, other things. The big miracle over here, right? The point is, I have to understand. As a Jew or a Jew in training, right? Or about Tshuva, what my purpose is. People get carried away and all the cleaning and moving stuff around. And okay, there are obligations you got to do, right? We mentioned last week all about listening to what the rabbis tell us and all that. It's crazy. A lot of things to do, right? A lot of expenses. At the same time, as we'll feel that we're being afflicted, right? At the same time, fulfilling God's will, by telling over the story, by telling over the miracle. There's a lot to do. But the problem is we forget. We're so busy. We're so busy cleaning. How's it smelling like? What do you call it? What do they call it in English? Bleach, right? A person's house smells like bleach all over the place. Everything's, covered in aluminum foil. A lot of things covered in aluminum foil just in case. If the kashering process doesn't work, so if something's really hot, you put it on, linoleum or, very thick aluminum foil. So even if you want to say some of the taste from the countertop, it might get hot enough. It might go into the pot. It might be hot. I mean, you're talking a lot of stringencies here. That's, Passover all about stringencies. Because we don't want anything to come in contact with chametz. We want to be extremely careful. There's a lot to do, right? There's a lot to do. We have to be mindful of what's the problem. The problem is tuning in. When I'm doing all my, all the cleaning over the last few weeks or more, and you're being very careful in this and that, you forget why you're doing this. Right? That's what I mentioned beginning of in the class of the laws of Shabbos. Right? I say you can't ask me why you're not allowed to rip toilet paper on Shabbos. Right? At least I'll have the first class and understand what Shabbos is about and what the purpose is. Okay, then you can say what category does it come under this and that, but you have to understand the base. And if you don't understand the base, you miss the whole thing. Right? Because going through what the Torah says and understanding is everything. Right? That is everything. But at the same time, we have to have, belief like a child in a certain way. And that is that we have what we call emunah pshuta, right? Simple faith and belief in God, right? Like Kaufman would say, God said it, we do it. and that's it. So yeah, be very simple, but there are questions. Okay. There are questions the person can have for a lifetime. They don't go away. The question, let's say, why, we've spoken about this many times, not the topic for now. Why do bad things happen to righteous people? Why do evil people seem to prosper? Right? It's an age-old question. You can read the book of Job, right? It's an age-old question. And the answer doesn't, some answers don't necessarily answer 100%. They don't. So there are questions, there are things we see that's mind-boggling, that we don't understand. And it's okay to say, I don't understand, right? And if God is so good or whatever, why does it make evil people? Okay, it's a great book. You want to read it? No. Yeah, there are things we're not going to understand that are beyond us. And even if you tell me it's about Gilgulim and a person's soul comes back and all that, and they have to go through certain things to fix up their soul, that's only a partial consolation. Why do I say partial? If someone lost a loved one and it was tragic and this and that, and that we know that they're not coming back. But if you understand, okay, the soul that was in that body had to go through this and that, even if it was revealed to us, even an angel, God himself came in a dream and revealed, okay, this is the reason why it had to happen. This is where they're now. You don't have anything to worry about. Very good. Yeah, but the person's still not here, right? So a person doesn't get that benefit, so to speak. It's not a whole benefit. I would say it's a partial consolation. You're going to say, but if God came to you, if God came to you and he told you this is the reason why it happened, and he opened your eyes and this and that, and you see where the person is in the next world, blah, 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 and it's not the evil inclination working and all that. So you wake up the next day, okay, right? But you're still in this world. You're still missing. You're still missing that other person. So when you're missing that other person, you're going to say, is that 100% consolation? No, not necessarily, because we're missing. We don't know how to view it. We don't know how to view it, so to speak. So it's hard. But again, we could go through our entire lives and have questions that aren't answered. That's okay. We're not God. I put on my funny George Burns glasses and my funny mustache. We're not God over here. We don't know how things work. That's okay. We're not supposed to. We're not God. There are people who think they are. And they think, they're supposed to explain every little thing. And try and understand the most difficult things. There are things you can't understand. Right? As I mentioned, as my Rebbe once told me, he said, say in my name. He'll say in my name. Moshe Sternbuch said, I don't know. And he knows everything. Yeah. So he says, there's things we don't know. We can't know. That's not a crutch. That's saying we're human, right? We're absolutely human. Humans cannot understand everything. It's an impossibility, right? Impossibility. Yeah. So I'll take some questions here. Someone asked, outside of Israel, it's going to be a 3-day holiday because it starts Wednesday night. Go Wednesday night to Thursday, Thursday night to Friday. Can't cook from Shabbos, from a festival to Shabbos. Even though in a festival, if you have a let's say you have the stove on or whatever, right? You have a pre-existing flame. So now you want to cook, but you can't prepare. You can't prepare from a festival to Shabbos. So what do? You got to make an Erev Tavshilin. So someone asks, what's the best time? What is the best time to say it? You say it right before the holiday comes in. Right before the holiday comes in. That's when you say it. Right? Wednesday. Let's say the holiday comes in right outside of Israel, 18 minutes before sundown. Right? So let's say sundown's 8 o'clock. Right? Let's say. So I would say 7 o'clock, 7:30. Yeah. You should take a cooked egg, right? Or cooked piece of meat or something, and take a piece of matzah, and you make the blessing. Now, one thing you have to remember is you got to keep it around till Shabbos. You have to eat it on Shabbos. Because the whole point is, since you're allowed to cook from a festival to Shabbos, you need that thing around. You need that you need a piece of matzah or the egg around. Otherwise, if you don't have it, big problem. How are you allowed to cook? Right? You got to make sure not to eat it on the festival. Right? I'd say put it in a special place. Know exactly where it is, or earmark it. Put it in a plastic bag and say, Erev Tavshilin, don't eat. Right? Don't eat until Shabbos. On Shabbos, you can eat it. Right? But that allows you to cook. Right? That allows you to cook. Now, somebody asks, how can a Noahide celebrate Passover? They really can't. Right? Why? I want to make one thing very clear. If you're a Jew in training, you can celebrate it. Why? Because you're learning. Because you want to be a Jew. If you don't want to be a Jew, again, what's the whole purpose here? The whole purpose is telling over the miracles. Of coming out of Egypt. How does that apply to a non-Jew? That does not want to convert. That doesn't apply. Totally doesn't apply. Can a non-Jew say, God took me out of Egypt? No. If he wants to be a Jew and they're going through the process as a JIT, a Jew in training, okay. Right. Really, they can't say it either. Because technically they're really a Noahide. Okay. But how are you going to know what to do on Passover? Yeah. So you're allowed. So you're allowed to make a Seder. You'd be allowed to go somewhere for the Seder, even though it's complicated, invited a non-Jew for a festival. I don't want to go into it. It's a complicated thing. But I'll ask a question with a question. You're asking, right? Someone's asking, I'm a Noahide, I want to partake. Yeah. Is there anything for me to do as a Noahide? What's the answer? No. Why would I say no? Very simple, because it doesn't apply to you. You didn't come out of Egypt, right? Celebrating the holiday of Shavuot is about getting to the Torah, Mount Sinai. Doesn't apply. As a non-Jew. If you're telling me I want to go through conversion, okay, different issue. That's a different issue. Totally different issue. Again, you can't, even if a person does that, they can't keep it the holiday exactly like a Jew. They have to do something on purpose to break it. Right? I.e., just like on Shabbos. No difference. Just like on Shabbos. Got to do something to break it. Somebody asks, is it true that if a mother and her son converts, they can marry each other? No, not true. That was easy. Yeah. Why is it not true? What's the question? The question is, they're not really related now. Right? In other words, each one is considered like a newborn baby. If each one is considered like a newborn baby, yeah, physically they're related. Okay. Spiritually, they're not related. Right? I'll give an example. Two brothers, two converts. Yeah. Usually two brothers, we learn out that two brothers cannot testify together. Right? In other words, person testifies with a witness. There are certain family relationships where, let's say, father to a son, a mother to a daughter, or vice versa, can't testify together, right? Because they're biased. Now, what about two converts? Two brothers converted, yeah? Can they testify together? Should be okay. Why? Because even though they're related by blood, you're going to say, oh, there's a bias. No bias over here, right? In that sense. Why not? Because they're not related. I mean, maybe there's a physiological bias. Spiritually speaking, they're not related. We look at them like they're not related, right? So over here, can they marry each other? Yeah, not brothers, right? Can a mother and her son marry each other? No. Technically, you tell me they're not related. True. Yeah, we don't allow it. There are different reasons why, right? But we don't allow it. Someone asked, a non-Jewish marriage, what are the responsibilities to his wife and his child? And how are our household responsibility to be distributed? Good question. Good question. By a Jewish marriage, we'll make it easy. By a Jewish marriage, what's the issue? When the groom gives his bride, the ksuva, the marriage document, he's obligated a number of things. He's obligated to support her, right? Physically, got to give her a house, clothing, conjugal rights, right? And whatever, he's got to take care of her. Now, and let's say by Noahites, by non-Jews, whether they're, I'm not going to speak about idolatry here, but let's say two non-Jews, they don't have to get married, according to the state. If they live together, it's Noahites, it's not a problem, right? For the sake of marriage, it's not a problem. So the question is, okay, so I answered about a Jewish marriage. In a Jewish marriage, the husband has to love his wife more than himself. In other words, he has to do things for his wife that he would never, that even if he wouldn't do it for himself. Now, what's the problem with that statement? What's the problem? There's a huge problem. Nobody loves anyone more than themselves. We're all conceited, in that sense. I'm going to do something for someone else, even my spouse, that I wouldn't do for myself. For your spouse, you got an obligation. Even if you yourself wouldn't do it for the sake of your spouse, because you love your spouse, it's a different issue. Yeah. So in a non-Jewish marriage, what are the husband's responsibilities to his wife? So again, I'd say similar to a Jewish marriage. You got to take care of her, right? He's got to support her. He's got to, put a roof over her head. Now, she says, and this is a Jewish marriage also. If she says, listen, I have my own money. You don't need to support me. He's not obligated. She can say, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. I got plenty of money myself. So that the person may not have the obligation. He's still going to provide a house or whatever, but he may not have that obligation. If she says, I don't want it, I don't need it. You have your money, I have my money. That's it. I don't need you to support me. Okay, so that's one less thing he has to do. One less thing. Yeah. What are the other responsibilities? What are the responsibilities of a husband to a wife in general? Yeah, he's got to take care of her. Take care of her needs. He's got to be attentive. He's got to help out. He should help out in the house. If she says, I don't need your help, you can do other things. I'll take care of everything in the house. You don't have to do anything. Okay. Should he still help? Probably. Yeah, big mitzvah to help, as well. There's once somebody that, thought it was beneath him, take out the trash. Yeah, so one of the Torah giants of last generation, a gifter from Cleveland, a blessed memory, showed up one day at this guy's house. He said, Rashiva, what are you doing here? He said, I came to take out your trash. Like, you were saying, it's not beneath me, and I'm the head of the yeshiva, yeah? He said, it's not beneath me to take out the trash. Yeah, this other guy thought, even according to Torah, why is that my responsibility? Even if you don't think it's your responsibility, yeah, you help out, you do it. If a woman says, I don't want you to do anything in the house, which I can't imagine, right? You don't have any responsibility whatsoever, I still think it's a good thing, for the person to help out. Yeah. But people forget, there's basic common courtesy. Basic common courtesy. Yeah. A person, his wife, goes through, 9 months carrying a child. Very uncomfortable. Not that I've done it, but, my wife's been, pregnant a lot of times. So, body changes, hormones. She goes through birth, very hard process, very, very hard process, etc. If men could get pregnant, we wouldn't have kids. We need kids in the world, pain tolerance and other things. But without going into all that, what does she do? She raises a child. Husband's out there working, slaving away. I'm not saying they can't share responsibility, right? But where's the main responsibility of raising a child come from? The woman. Girls at a very young age, playing house, not guys. Not boys. They're running around, jumping around, killing each other, playing games, this, that, and women are playing with dolls and carriages and this and that. I'm not saying they don't play sports and do other things. I'm saying in general, where they're going to say, "Oh, come on, it's very simplistic, and you don't live in this world." This is the way God created man and woman. They have different responsibilities. Yeah. Can a man be trained to be more, attentive, more nurturing, help out more? Sure. Sure. Is that his realm of responsibility? No. Should he help? 100% he should help. 100%. Give his wife a break. Again, if she says, "I'm superwoman, I can do all this, I don't need your help, I don't want your help," okay. Yeah, but at some point, women can't do it all. It's very hard. She's got a full-time job, and even if sending the kids to daycare or whatever, she deserves to be respected because, yeah, she's the one that gets up in the middle of the night. They may switch off this and that, but she's got the majority responsibility. So if she's got the majority responsibility, the guy should do when he comes home, do whatever he can to help. She might be, run ragged, during the day, comes home and it's like chaos and whatever, and he sees the house is upside down. The guy shouldn't come in and start, criticizing his wife. That's the worst thing he can do. It's like, "What'd you do all day?" And let's say, she stays at home. Let's say she doesn't work, which is kind of hard to believe today because most people have to have two incomes. Yeah. But, she's busy at work. She comes back, this, that, could be all kinds of things going on. So a husband has to have that respect, alone for the fact she raises kids. I'm not saying he doesn't play a part. He definitely should play a part as well. But at the same time, who gets the majority responsibility? So, it's the woman. Say, "Oh, that's sexist. That's old-fashioned." That's the reality. That's the reality according to nature, right? According to the way we're created, that's the way it is. That's what it is. So a person should have absolute respect for his wife because they raise their kids. So no matter how many kids you have, right? Even if you have one child at home, she's busy helping raise your child. So she deserves the break. She deserves to be helped. And if a person can help, they should. They absolutely should. Now, there is a caveat here. If the person, if the person's Jewish, she should also send him out to learn because he's only exempt from learning when he's working, right? He's obligated to bring in money, right? So when he's not trying to bring in money, he should be learning. Now, what if you're a non-Jew? You don't have that obligation to learn, like a Jew does. But also you have to know what to do. Right? You have to know what to do as a non-Jew. And these laws are complex. You can say, 7 laws. They're more than 60, 65, 70, right? According to some. These laws are complex. Jewish philosophy should be studied. Musar, ethics should be studied. All right? A person has to find a balance. Finding a balance not always so easy. Right? Not only you have an obligation to work in other things. You have to, you also have to help out, because this is what she does, and a person should respect his wife just for that. I would say just go, getting pregnant and going through all that. That's hard enough. That's hard enough. And birth, the whole nother beast. The whole nother beast. Yeah. So, are you obligated to share responsibilities? You should. No question. No question. If the wife feels she can handle everything, okay, right? But you still help out. You still do things that, take off the load because she's got majority responsibility, right? Someone there points out, it's obviously a woman, right? Saying that's the nature of life. That's what it is. That's what it is. No matter how many kids you have. The more kids you have, the more responsibility. It's true. It's a lot more work. It's true. There's no question. I think there's a lot more benefit also having, having a bigger family. I remember, my oldest daughter was born. I would come home from learning, in the early afternoon. I was like, I'm going to sleep. Like, you deal with her. Like, I was the entertainment. She didn't have any siblings. She didn't have any brothers or sisters, at that point. So, like, she's like, I'm too tired of going to sleep. She's all yours till you have to leave. I said, okay. So I was the entertainment. It became, easier when, there are other siblings. other siblings came along. But yeah, it's a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And children grow up in a better environment, when husband and wife are, going in the right path. They're doing the same thing. They complement each other. Husband has to have almost like a sixth sense. I don't you really need a sixth sense, but you have to know. A woman's going through all this, and even if she's working, even if it's part-time, this and that, majority responsibility, kid gets sick or whatever, she's got the responsibility. So it's not the husband. Now he might go to the doctor, might do other things, but she's got the other responsibility. Yeah. So a person has to realize, right? A person has to realize, what the spouse does, what the wife does over here. So, she may not want her husband in the kitchen. She may not want him doing dishes and other things. Okay. Right. But that has to be worked out. That 100%, she says, yeah, I could really use your help. This, okay. Right. If she says, I don't want your help and I don't need your help. You have to see. You have to see, engage if she's just saying that to be a martyr or she doesn't really need the help. Right. But again, this comes from, this comes from marriage. This comes from learning, learning from each other. Right. So to speak. So, a person, a couple can divvy out household responsibilities any way they want. No set rule. There's no set rule. You say, all right, women belong in the kitchen, women belong doing this, doing that. There's no set, when it comes to kids and other things, okay, maybe they're more nurtured that way. Fine. But, household responsibilities and who goes food shopping, who does the errands, other things. So, okay. So you have to work out, a plan, and who's going to do that, what makes the most sense. And, and that may differ from family to family. Right. But the most important thing over here is that the husband has to take responsibility. That's no question. Sometimes, I mentioned the story of Rav Gifter. Sometimes the person will think, a guy may think, I'm sitting and learning, I'm doing other things, I'm whatever. It's not my responsibility. He might be right. Maybe it isn't. But if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Because if the parents have a healthy relationship, the kids will grow up in a normal home, right? They'll have a nurturing home. If there's always bickering, I do this, you don't do that, you don't take responsibility, you don't give me enough attention, it's, unfortunately, a lot of this has been lost. That's why there are a lot of self-help books, about parenting and other things. Rav Simcha lost him in a blessed memory. His father's Rebbe Chanan, who was a Torah giant, the last generation. Hashem Yikam Damoy. God should avenge his blood. He was a famous student of the Chofetz Chaim. He was the head of the yeshiva in Baranovich. And Rav Simcha lost him and never had kids, never had children. But he was a world expert in raising kids. People would come to him from all over the world to ask him questions about raising kids. So he had a cousin, Rabbi Kiva Tatz, should be well. He asked him once. He said, how can you be such a big expert, in raising kids? You never had kids. Right? Pretty blunt. He's like, you never had kids. What happened? So Rav Simcha said, I learned about raising kids from my parents. I learned everything about child education from my parents. That's the way it should be. The problem is people are not necessarily the best parents. And kids see through what they do and what they say. Yeah, so it's hard. It's very, very, it's very, very hard. And kids scrutinize parents. Doesn't matter what the parents are going through and how difficult things are, whatever. Kids see it. And kids grow up, majority of the time by the parents, even though they're in school a lot. They're in school and, in other Orthodox communities, they're in school a good part of the day, but their education's really getting at home. And if there's something wrong at home, the kids will come out different ways. Maybe not for the best, but these are things, unfortunately, have to be relearned. Let's say better, they have to be learned. And the reason is, right, is because people don't know. It's very easy to have a child, in theory, biology 101, 101A. It's very easy. Yeah, if all things work. Very good. Educating them. They say, when does education of children start? 20 years before they're born. Having a child's easy in general. Educating them, dealing with them, it's hard. Right? But again, it's something that's been lost. Because you can't just wing it. If you wing it, your kids will come up, God forbid, will come out messed up. You can't wing and just react. That you can't do. Yeah, and if kid acts up and this and that, it's okay. You might have to get advice. You may, I've never heard in the secular world people taking parenting courses. In general. Not when I was growing up. I've never heard such a thing. Today it's a common thing out the Orthodox community. It's a common thing. It doesn't mean you're a wuss or you're a loser. It means sometimes you might need help. Dealing with kids. It might be hard. It might be very difficult. As well. Someone asked, I make a video with all the prophecies of Torah that came true. Yeah, maybe. Put that on my list. Someone asked if we agree to do more than a Noahide, is it a problem? But modesty for women, it depends. If there are things that are taboo for non-Jews, they shouldn't do it. If it's something, let's say you say modesty, does a non-Jew have to be modest? No. They have to dress modestly? No. But at the same time, when I say it's a good moral imperative, sure. That's not infringing on us. If it's something that it's like you're making a new religion, as the Rambam says in the Laws of Kings, in the 10th chapter, no. Then you wouldn't be allowed. Yeah, but you can't, that's a whole discussion. You can't straddle both worlds, right? But if it's something that's only a moral imperative, you're not stepping on, Jews, so to speak, to do it to show you want to be like this super Jew, even though you're not, a different issue. If you're not doing that, it's fine. If you are doing things that a non-Jew shouldn't be doing, and they're imitating Jews, that's the Rambam says is forbidden because you're making a new religion. And that you got to be careful for. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. This is every Tuesday and Thursday, not this Thursday because it will be Passover. But we'll pick up with this, I guess, next week. Or I don't know if we're going to be around actually next week or part of the week. We'll see. But I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Israel Time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or my Facebook page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or my YouTube channel, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. A lot of videos there on the Torah portion of the week, on Q&As, ethics of our fathers, etc. So anyone who has any questions, you can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, or RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, or end of the day, depending where you are. And